ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामने गौरतुसे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, verse number 13 of chapter 2nd. So we discussed about this verse yesterday. Dehino asmin yatha dehi kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara prapti dhira satrana muhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So this is one of the most important, basic and fundamental verse in Bhagavad Gita, in which Lord Krishna clearly explains that we are not this body at all. We are completely aloof from this body. We are not even mind and intelligence and ego. So, and Krishna is introducing this fact. He is giving very logical and reasonable argument. It's not that, although the Vedic literatures, the scriptures, and Bhagavad Gita should be accepted as it is, without any uh, means objection, without any hesitation. Even if we aren't able to understand, even if it is not fitting to our logic and reason, still the statements or injunctions of the Vedas or scriptures should be accepted as fact. The Vedic injunctions are infallible. Infallible means and no condition, no circumstances, it can fall or it can be untrue. It is applicable universally for all the time. Eternally, it is applicable universally. So that's a fact. But still, Krishna is giving very nice, logical, and reasonable argument in order to make us understand that how we are not this body. Krishna would have only said that Arjuna, you are not this body, you are spirit soul. That's all. So just give up all the lamentation, all the consideration based on material body, and just act on spiritual level, considering or knowing yourself to be different from this body. So that is also sufficient. Any sane man or any intelligent person or any pure hearted soul would easily accept these instructions. But because Krishna knew we are conditioned soul, and specifically we are living in this most degraded age of Kali Yuga, where anybody can object for anything, for small. Now, what is the symptom of this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, this age of Kali? That with slight provocation, uh, because of slight offense, people are prepared to fight, even to the point of killing each other. That is a symptom of this age of Kali. Or anyone who is thus affected, anyone who becomes so agitated or becomes so angry or prepared to take revenge, even for slight offense, that means she is influenced by this age of Kali. And one who can overcome this, one who is free from this kind of agitation, he is considered to be free from the influence of age of Kali. So obviously, who has taken birth in this age, they are influenced by this age of Kali. There is no doubt about it. Just like if somebody is within the water, he must be wet. He cannot be he cannot become free from the influence of water. Only a person who is wearing a raincoat or certain kind of suits, he may be free from the effect of water. Similarly, anyone who has taken birth in this age, who has accepted this material body in this age of Kali, he is affected. That is natural, uh, and everyone, and we find this. But only a person who has practiced religious principles proper in a proper way, who has attained to some degree, who has attained some spiritual standing, then he can be free from these influences. And there are people, there are devotees like this who are not at all influenced by this most degraded age of Kali. But this is the general symptom. So considering all these things, Krishna is giving very nice explanation, logical, reasonable arguments, so that we may be able to accept it. And Arjuna also, uh, he will also ask so many questions after second chapter. In second chapter, Krishna completes entire Bhagavad Gita. He gives all the content of the Gita. That is where the name of the second chapter is Contents of Bhagavad Gita summarized. And Gita ka Sat, contents of Gita summarized. So Krishna gave everything in the second chapter and with all reason and logic. There is nothing lacking in that. But because we are Durbuddhi, Mandabuddhi, Durbuddhi, because in this fallen age, people are degraded. They cannot understand it properly, and they misunderstand. What to speak of understanding properly? Generally, the symptom of this age is people misunderstand the words of scriptures, words of the Supreme Lord, words of a sadhu, 20%. They are not willing to hear completely. Something they will hear and they will just concoct and they will just misunderstand. And this is going on with so many people. They read some part of the scripture and then they just unnecessarily misunderstand and they misinterpret it and mislead people in general. That is why there are so many bogus philosophers with bogus philosophies, and specifically the most degraded philosophy is this mayavad misconception, which we are going to discuss today. In this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport. So this is the reason, and that's why we need elaborate explanation and a great mercy of devotees. So Arjuna, being a great devotee, he is very merciful. He is going to ask many questions on behalf of us, and then Krishna will explain the entire Bhagavad Gita again in great detail from chapter number 3 to chapter number 17 and 18th chapter also, and he concludes finally. And Krishna says again, Arjuna, if you have not understood even now, you can ask again. I am prepared to speak again the entire Bhagavad Gita, maybe in more detail. But Arjuna said, no, no, now this is sufficient. Karishya Vaishnam Sava Tava. Now whatever you say, I will accept. Krishna is very beautifully, he is explaining that we are not this body. How we are not this body? We are different from this body. So this can be understood very easily. Just like every one of us, we have taken birth and then our body has grown up from boyhood, childhood body to youth, and then from youth to old age. Everyone is going through different phases of bodily changes. So in these different phases of bodily changes, everyone knows that I am the same person. We feel or we experience our own existence always. Although the body is changing, mentality is changing, intellectual level is changing, maturity is changing. So all these things are changing. But I know that I am the same person. Everyone knows these things. So this very fact proves that we are not this body. We are not this body because body has changed, but I am not. I am not changed. And similarly, my mentality has changed, but I am not changed. So that means I am not this mind also, and my intelligence level of my intelligence has also changed. But I am not changed. So I am not this intelligence also. and my maturity and all these things are changed. So that proves that we are completely aloof from all kinds of changeable things of this material world. And another way we can say, whatever is changing in this material existence, that is temporary, material, and dull, and we have nothing to do with these. We are completely aloof from it. So this anybody can understand. Even a small boy can understand this fact that we are not this body, we are spirit soul, because the body is changing, but I am the same person. If you look at your picture when you were a child, now you look at your uh, image picture, so it's completely different. You cannot, if a strange person sees, he may not be able to even identify that it is your picture in childhood. That means the body has completely changed, but you have not changed. So Krishna is giving such a wonderful reason or logic to make us completely understand that we are not this body. So this is the first and foremost knowledge which one should have, that we are not this body. Because as long as we think ourselves to be body, we we are sure to get illusion. We are sure to get deviated, we are sure to get distracted, and we are sure to remain in perplexity, confusion, anxiety, depression. Because the nature of body is to keep changing. And as the body changes, we suffer the consequences. That is the reason uh, this material concept of life, which is changing always, gives us pain and disturbances, anxiety, because we think we identify ourselves with this changeable, temporary material existence, material body. But as soon as one becomes aware of his true identity as the spirit soul, then he understands I have nothing to do with this changeable material existence. So he becomes relieved of anxiety. At least 50% of his anxiety is immediately relieved when one understands that I am not this body at all. This is so powerful knowledge. But one has to understand is one has to accept it. Then only. Otherwise, if somebody is too much materially engrossed in fulfilling the demands of the body and senses, then he will not be able to accept these instructions. And then he will be forced to suffer again and again. So we discussed this verse yesterday, and first and second paragraph we read. And such a person who knows these things perfectly, such a person is called a dhira, or a most sober person, most sober man, and he doesn't get bewildered with the change of bodies. He doesn't get bewildered at the time of death, and even while living in this material world, because everything is changing, everything keeps changing. Material things keeps changing. Material relationship keeps changing, and the way people deal in this world, they keep changing. So, a sober person who knows the nature of this material existence, he is not bewildered. He knows this is the nature of this material world, material things. But I have nothing to do with this material things, material body, and material people. So why should I unnecessarily get disturbed? So he is fixed up in his spiritual consciousness that I am eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. So he is not bewildered. He, spite of all the changes in material circumstances, he goes on with the execution of his spiritual duties. See, there's the last third paragraph. So, Srila Prabhupada is writing, the mayavad theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. So these things will be explained more in detail in the coming verses. But Srila Prabhupada is introducing, because the concept of soul has been introduced. Srila Prabhupada is writing that is the nature of the spirit soul is unchangeable against the nature of this material body, which keeps changing. That's why in this particular verse, Krishna is mentioning that this body, deha, Is from Kaumaram to Yovanam to Jara. But soul has no such thing. Kaumaram, Yovanam, Jara. Uh, Soul never becomes old. Soul never becomes young or child. No. These things are applicable only to this material body. Material body passes through these different phases in life, from childhood to youth, youth to old age. So material things, material body keeps changing, whereas spirit, soul, spiritual things remain as it is, eternally, unchangeable. That's why this Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul, it cannot be accepted. Why? Because if somebody accepts the Mayavadi misconception that the soul, when it is within the body, it is has individual existence, but as soon as the soul becomes free from material entanglement, becomes liberated from material conditioning, then the soul is liberated. When the soul is liberated, it gets merged into the supreme soul or Brahman. So there cannot be this case. The soul cannot merge, because if the soul is getting merged in the spirit soul, in Brahman or the supreme soul, that means the soul is changing. The soul has changed its form, which is against the principle of this unchangeable, that the spirit soul or spiritual things are unchangeable. Unchangeable means spirit soul or spiritual things, they remain as it is in whatever form, whatever existence the spirit, soul, spiritual things were there in the past, and they remain as it is in the present, and they remain as it is in the future also. That is the meaning of unchangeable. So if Mayavadi misconception is accepted, that means the soul is going to change. Or in the past, when the soul, there was no separate existence, everything was one Brahman, one supreme impersonal Brahman. Then, considering this fact also, that the individual soul has accepted the body, that means the spirit soul was cut into pieces and then accepted this material body. And after getting liberated from material existence, again the spirit soul will go and merge. So this is again against the principle of the nature of spirit soul. That's why any sane person, any intelligent person who has even little brain can understand this is against the principle of spirit soul. So as confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, Sanatana, and are called Kshara. Rather, Bhagavad Gita speaks about the nature of the spirit soul, existence of the spirit soul in this world in a opposite manner, opposite to the Mayavadi misconception. Mayavadi misconception is that the spirit soul, individual soul, do not exist eternally. After getting liberated, they go and merge into the Supreme Brahman. But Lord Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sana. Jiva. All the living entities in this material existence, they are my part and parcel. They are my eternal part and parcel. That is what Krishna explains in the Gita. There was never a time when these parts and parcels were not in existence. And in the future also, there will never be time when these parts and parcels will not exist. So we, all the living entities, we existed. We are in existence eternally. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Krishna says. Mamai Vamsho, Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are Sanatan Amsa, eternal Amsha of the Supreme Lord. So there is no question of getting merged in the Supreme Soul. That is the greatest misconception, a bogus idea, which is untrue, which is not at all true. And anyone who gets attracted to such a great misconception, oneness with the Supreme, his spiritual life, his entire spiritual life is doomed, and he is lost in this material existence to suffer uh, transmigration of 84 lakhs species of life. This is the only result one gets if one accepts the misconception of oneness with the Supreme Brahman. So these living entities, that means we, living entities, we are eternally parts and parts of the Supreme Lord, and we are Kshara. Kshara means that they have a tendency to fall down into material nature, because we are so insignificant that we have the tendency that we fall down in material nature. We get affected by material conditioning. So as long as, but there is hope, As long as we are connected with the Supreme Self, Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, then we are safe. And as soon as we detach ourselves, we turn our face away from the Supreme Lord, immediately we get affected by Maya. We fall down into Maya. Krishna Bahirmukha Jiva Bhogavancha Kare. As soon as a Jiva, a living entity, turns his face against the Supreme Lord Krishna and desires immediately within his heart, the desire for material sense gratification, Bhoga, appears. And then what happens? Nikatisthe Maya Tare Jhapatiya Thare. The Maya is just standing behind the Supreme Lord Krishna. Nikatistha. The Maya is standing very nikat, very nearby, this near living entity. And nikatisthe Maya Tare Chapatiya Thare. Immediately uh, Maya entangles, Maya catches that living entity and entangles that living entity completely into this material existence to accept. Forcefully, the living entity has to accept 84 lakhs of species and suffer the three for miserable situation. So these fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of God. The theory of reflection can be applied to the super soul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of God and Shri Krishna. They are not on the same level as it will be apparent in the beginning of the fourth chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and the instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So, this is our constitutional position, and this is knowledge. Knowledge is to understand that we are eternal parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And the Supreme Lord Krishna, being the super soul, supreme soul, master of entire creation and all the living entities, he never gets affected by Maya. And the living entities, being insignificant parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, they are always prone or vulnerable to get affected by the influence of three modes of material nature. That is the affect, the tendency, that is the tendency of the living entity. So that is why this mayavad misconception of oneness, that one misconception is that everything is just one. There is no duality, they say. There is no duality. There is nothing two. There is no two, there is only one. So this is one great misconception where one thinks there is only one. So this is wrong because living entity cannot be cut into pieces. We already discussed. And regarding this oneness principle of Mayavad, Advaitavad, another misconception which they propose is that although apparently now living entities appear to be different, but actually they are all one. Everyone is actually Narayan. Everyone is actually as good as Supreme Brahma. So this is another kind of great illusion or misconception. This also cannot be accepted because if all the living entities are accepted as Narayana or the Supreme Brahman, then what is the use of getting instruction from another Narayana? If everyone is Narayana, then what is the use to get instructed by another Narayana? Then why do you refer to Vedic literature and Bhagavad Gita? Because Vedas are given by Narayana. And here Bhagavad Gita specifically we are discussing. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is instructor and Arjuna is instructed. Krishna is in superior position and Arjuna is in inferior position. Krishna is controller of Maya and Arjuna is controlled by Maya. So if this theory, misconception of mayavad, this theory is accepted that everyone is one, everyone is on equal platform, everyone is Narayana, although apparently materially one is appearing as Darita Narayana, someone is Kutta Narayana. This is a philosophy given by one famous sannyasi. We cannot take the name, otherwise some of you may become angry. But this such a bogus philosophy has been propagated by a Mayavadi sannyasi who is very famous. But he says this Daridra, poor person, he's poor person, but he is also Narayan. So he named him Daridra Narayan. And then there was a dog. So he said, this is dog Narayan, Kutta Narayan. Then there was a sewer, pig, there is pig Narayan. And in this way, considering everyone to be equal and one, he used to eat on the same plate with Kutta, a dog. Such a great misconception. And he is considered. So if you think that the same person, our question is, our argument is, if let's say to the same person who thinks that everyone is one, if you think that everyone is one, everyone is Narayana, there is no difference, then why you have taken the position of instructing someone? Why are you instructing if everyone is one? And if everyone is one, everyone is just Narayana, Supreme Brahman. So why there is difference of opinion? We do not agree to your proposal. Then that means there is two. We do not accept your such bogus philosophy. So then how can you say that everyone is one? If everyone is Narayana, everyone is one, then everyone's opinion should be one. But we do not accept your opinion. That means we are two. You are different. I am different. So there is difference. This simple proof. Srila Prabhupada did this with one Mayavadi. He was telling, everyone is one, everything is one, everything is one. Srila Prabhupada immediately told, I do not agree. That means your philosophy is proved wrong. I do not agree. Then it's finished. All Mayavad misconception, this theory of oneness is immediately finished as soon as a Vaishnava says, I do not agree. Finish. That means there is difference too. Two things have come up. So this is great illusion. And this illusion has created such a great havoc in people's heart. They have entered into such a great misconception that they cannot use even their little intelligence also to understand these things, that everything is not one. There is difference, there is variety. But anyway, so in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is very much clearly is proving this that this theory of oneness is completely wrong, because it's everything is one. If Krishna and Arjuna are one and the same, then there is no use of Krishna becoming the spiritual master and instructing. Then there is no use of his Bhagavad Gita. Then why to refer Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures to support your theory of oneness? Because if everything is one, everyone is one, Narayana and Krishna, you are also Narayana and Krishna, then how come you are accepting Krishna or Narayana or Vedas to be the source of knowledge or your instructor? Then you yourself become instructor. Then don't refer to these Vedic literatures. So this is very clear. So in the Bhagavad Gita, from the very beginning of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has just refuted all these misconceptions of Mayavad, and he will continue to do this. And our acharyas, they are very, very great acharyas. In each and every verse, they have dismantled, they have refuted all these bogus misconceptions and given us pure form of teaching of Bhagavad Gita. That's why we are very, very fortunate. That's why Srila Prabhupada, when he wrote this commentary, he wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's why it is as it is. Okay. So with this, we'll stop. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Hare Krishna. So one question has come up. How to identify a real sadhu and a bogus sadhu? A real sadhu speaks only what Krishna speaks. He doesn't manufacture his own ideology. He does not change the words of the Supreme Lord. Krishna says, Man mana bhav mad bhakta. That means Krishna says, you think of me you surrender unto me, you become my devotee, you worship me. So a real sadhu will speak only those things. He will say, yes, you think of Krishna, you worship Krishna, you surrender to Krishna, you become devoted to Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. That is the real sadhu. But anyone who changes or manipulates the words of the Supreme Lord and says all these nonsense, bogus things, when Krishna says, you think of me, no, 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 you don't need to think about Krishna. It is something within that Krishna, that impersonal Supreme Brahman, which is within you also. And in this way, you and that Krishna's within that impersonal Supreme Brahman is the one and the same. So you need not to think about the person Krishna, but you need to meditate upon that impersonal Supreme Brahman, which is within you also and within each and every body. So you better think about those nonsense, impersonal Brahman. So this is bogus. This is the bogus sadhu. But real sadhu means he will always very respectfully he will establish the very this fact that Krishna is the supreme Lord, He is supreme controller, and we are His eternal parts and parcels. We are His eternal servants, and we are meant to love Him, serve Him. That is the business of real sadhu. Okay. So another question: does Sanatan means Hindu dharma? No, no. Hindu dharma is not mentioned in any Vedic literature. Hindu dharma, Hindu name has been given by Muslims. They named those people living near the Sindhu river. They named them as Sindhus, but later on the pronunciation changed into Hindus. But of course, those who are Hindus, they follow the teachings of Sanatan Dharma. So we can say Hindu Dharma means Sanatan Dharma. But actually, this name is not there in Vedic literature. We are Sanatani, or we are followers of Sanatan Dharma, Varnashram Dharma at material level, and at spiritual level, we are eternal servant of Supreme Lord Krishna, or Lord Rama, Lord Narayana. That is our real Dharma. That we are servants, we are Das, Krishna Das, Narayan Das, Ram Das. That is our Dharma. So if we have extra mala, which have only used once, can we give it to anyone else who wants to chat? Yes, you can give, no problem. Okay. Hare Krishna. Is there any other question? You can ask. Hare Krishna.